When a man truly falls in love, not infatuation, not excitement, but deep, secure love, something remarkable happens. His language begins to change. His words carry weight, safety, and future. And if you listen closely, you'll hear it. When a man falls deeply in love, his words begin to mirror his inner world with a level of emotional authenticity that cannot be faked. It's the moment when communication shifts from something performative to something profoundly real. In the early stages of attraction, many people, men and women alike, often speak from a place of impression. They're trying to sound interesting, charming, or desirable. Their words are polished but slightly distant, shaped by what they want the other person to think of them. But when love takes root, when connection deepens beyond surface-level chemistry, something more genuine begins to emerge. The need to impress fades, replaced by a need to express. A man who is emotionally authentic no longer speaks to be admired, he speaks to be understood. His tone softens, his phrasing slows, and his words carry intention rather than performance. You'll notice it in the small things. He doesn't rush to fill silences because silence no longer feels awkward. He shares thoughts he once kept private because the trust between you creates a safe space for vulnerability. Emotional authenticity transforms the way he communicates. It makes his words less about control and more about connection. You might hear him admit things that feel raw or imperfect. Instead of saying, "I'm fine," he might say, "I'm having a tough day." Instead of pretending everything is okay, he's willing to let you see the parts of him that aren't polished. That's the true sign of emotional intimacy. When someone stops hiding their truth to keep your approval, his language becomes transparent, not because he's trying harder, but because he's stopped trying at all. He's simply being himself with you. When a man reaches this level of authenticity, his emotional honesty becomes the foundation of the relationship. He no longer tells you what you want to hear. He tells you what's real. That doesn't mean he becomes harsh or careless with his words. Quite the opposite. Authentic love makes people more thoughtful. Because he values you, he speaks with care. He knows that words can build or break connection, and he chooses them with the awareness that they have emotional impact. What's most beautiful about this stage is how natural it feels. You don't need to question whether he means what he says. His consistency between words and actions removes doubt. He says he'll call, and he does. He says he cares, and he shows it. That alignment is the essence of emotional authenticity. It's not just about what he says, but how reliably his behavior supports it. This kind of communication creates safety. When a man speaks from a place of emotional truth, you can feel it. His words bring calm instead of confusion. They don't leave you analyzing or guessing. Emotional authenticity breeds clarity. It brings a sense of peace because you can finally trust that what you hear reflects what's real. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing someone's words aren't crafted to manipulate, but to connect. And that's the difference between attraction and love. Attraction makes someone want to say the right thing. Love makes them want to say the true thing. A man who's deeply in love stops worrying about appearing perfect because he knows love doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty. He's not afraid that being real will drive you away. He believes that being real will draw you closer. Emotional authenticity is the most powerful language of love. It's not about grand speeches or poetic declarations. It's about the quiet, consistent honesty that says, "I trust you enough to be seen." When a man reaches that point, every word he speaks carries the weight of his heart, steady, sincere, and unmistakably real. When a man begins to love deeply, his language transforms in ways that reveal the depth of his emotional connection. You start to notice subtle shifts in the way he speaks, especially in his choice of pronouns, his tone, and his focus. The biggest transformation happens when his language moves from I to we. This small shift may seem insignificant on the surface, but it carries a profound emotional meaning. It marks the moment when he no longer sees himself as a separate unit moving through life alone, but as part of something shared, something intertwined. intertwined in the beginning of many relationships. Communication tends to center around individuality. He talks about his plans, his opinions, his needs, his schedule. That's natural. It's self-preservation, the instinct to maintain identity and independence. But when love deepens, the language of separation softens. He starts saying things like, "What should we do this weekend?" Or "We should try that place together." These are not just words of inclusion. They're verbal evidence of emotional merging. His mind has subconsciously begun to factor you into his decisions, his joys, and even his future. Language is one of the clearest windows into emotional reality. A man may not always articulate love through big gestures or dramatic confessions, but the way his vocabulary evolves tells you everything. "I want to go on vacation" turns into "we need a break." "I had a good day" becomes "my day was better after talking to you." These are not rehearsed phrases. They're spontaneous signs of connection. His focus gradually shifts from self-centered to relationship-centered, which reflects a change in emotional perspective, from independence to interdependence. The beauty of this shift is that it doesn't erase individuality. When a man starts using "we," it's not about losing himself. It's about expanding himself. Love doesn't take away his identity. It stretches it to include someone else. In this stage, he begins to see your happiness as an extension of his own. Your success, your comfort, your peace start to matter, not because they affect his ego, but because they touch his heart. Another subtle change you might notice is how he starts using language that builds togetherness. He might say, "We'll figure it out when a problem arises." Those three words, "we'll figure it out," carry reassurance, unity, and emotional stability. It's his way of saying, "You're not alone in this. I'm with you, even when it's hard." That shift from individual problem solving to collective resilience is one of the purest signs of emotional commitment. Even the way he speaks about the future becomes telling. A man who's deeply in love doesn't just talk about what he wants to do next year. He talks about what you both could do. "We should go there someday, when we move, our next step." These phrases don't come from obligation. They come from genuine emotional investment. They reveal that in his mind, the future already includes you. What's powerful about these linguistic changes is that they often happen without him realizing it. They're not strategies or conscious efforts to sound romantic. They're instinctive responses to connection. Love begins to reshape his internal dialogue, and his speech naturally follows. This is why paying attention to the subtleties of language matters more than listening for grand declarations. Anyone can say "I love you," but when a man's daily speech begins to weave into his plans, his decisions, and even his worries, that's when you know love is no longer an idea. It's a lived experience. When a man starts using words that include you, it's not just grammar. It's emotion speaking through language. His choice of words reflects a deeper truth. He's no longer just living his story, he's inviting you to co-author it. And that's the quiet magic of love, expressed not through performance, but through presence. When a man truly loves someone, his affection stops being measured by how intensely he expresses it and starts being defined by how consistently shows it. This is the essence of consistency over intensity. The idea that deep love doesn't burn in quick, dazzling bursts. It glows steadily, quietly, and reliably. Early attraction often comes wrapped in grand gestures, spontaneous messages, and passionate highs. It feels thrilling, but it's also unpredictable. You're left wondering what comes next, whether that emotional energy will fade as quickly as it appeared. Real love, however, doesn't rely on constant excitement to survive. Instead, it thrives on the calm rhythm of presence. A man who loves deeply will not always be dramatic in his expressions. He won't need to overwhelm you with constant declarations or prove his love through extravagant acts. Instead, he'll show up again and again in ways that make your life feel stable. He'll remember the small details, keep his promises, and stay emotionally available even when the initial excitement fades. It's in the steady good morning texts, the check-ins after a long day, the simple question, "Are you okay?" Those tiny, consistent moments of care that build emotional trust over time. Intensity is easy. Anyone can be passionate for a moment. But consistency requires emotional maturity, discipline, and genuine affection. It's about what happens after the spark, after the chase, after comfort replaces novelty. A man who loves deeply doesn't disappear when things get challenging. He stays. His presence becomes predictable, not in a boring way, but in a comforting one. You start to feel that you can rely on him, that his affection won't fluctuate based on mood, convenience, or ego. Consistency is love's quiet language. It's not about how loud he can shout his feelings, but how softly he can keep showing up without being asked. It's about doing what he says he'll do, not because he's trying to impress you, but because it matters to him to keep his word. In a world where many confuse passion with devotion, consistency stands out as the most reliable proof of real emotional depth. This doesn't mean love becomes dull. On the contrary, when love is consistent, it deepens. It moves from being about adrenaline to being about alignment. You stop asking, does he really care? Because his actions answer that question every day. The emotional highs and lows even out, replaced by something more peaceful, a connection built on respect, trust, and emotional steadiness. You no longer feel anxious waiting for his attention because you know it's coming. A man who loves with consistency doesn't need to be perfect. He'll have days where he's distracted or quiet, but even in those moments, his commitment doesn't waver. He communicates, apologizes, and reconnects. You'll notice that his love is not about constant intensity, but about reliable return. He might not always say the most romantic words, but his behavior will show an underlying message. You can count on me. That sense of emotional security is one of the most powerful forms of love there is. Consistent love transforms the dynamic between two people. It replaces insecurity with trust, guessing with knowing, and anxiety with peace. You no longer feel like you're trying to decode his emotions or chase after his attention. You feel chosen, valued, and respected every single day. So when a man's words become steady rather than dramatic, don't mistake that for indifference. That's actually when love matures. It's not the fireworks that define the relationship, but the gentle, unwavering flame that stays lit long after the fireworks fade. True love doesn't need to shout. It simply shows up again and again in quiet, consistent ways that remind you are safe, seen, and genuinely loved. When a man begins to love deeply, something subtle yet profound shifts inside him. He starts to care about your emotional well-being as much as his own. This is where emotional safety comes in. It's not just about physical protection or affection. It's about creating a space where you feel seen, heard, and emotionally secure. A man who loves deeply doesn't want you to carry your worries alone. His words and actions begin to communicate one consistent message. You're safe with me. Emotional safety is the foundation of real intimacy. It's what allows two people to be completely themselves without fear of judgment, rejection, or misunderstanding. In the early stages of attraction, many people filter what they say. They hide their insecurities, overthink their responses, and perform emotional confidence. But when love deepens, that mask starts to fall. A man who's emotionally invested will begin to open up about his feelings, fears, and vulnerabilities. He'll talk about things that matter, not because he needs reassurance, but because he trusts you enough to be real. That trust, in turn, gives you permission to do the same. When a man truly loves you, his language shifts from self-centered to emotionally attuned. He begins to ask questions like, "Are you okay?" Or "How did that make you feel?" Not out of obligation, but from genuine concern. These small sentences carry emotional weight. They tell you that he's not only listening to your words, but paying attention to your inner world. Love at this level is not just expressed through romantic gestures, it's demonstrated through presence and emotional awareness. He becomes more careful with his tone, not because he's afraid of conflict, but because he doesn't want to create emotional damage. He learns to pause before speaking harshly, to soften his words when you're vulnerable, and to apologize when he's hurt you, not to win an argument, but to protect the bond. This is emotional safety in action. The ability to disagree, communicate, and reconnect without fear that love will be withdrawn. When a man loves you deeply, he doesn't use silence as punishment or vulnerability as leverage. Instead, he creates a stable emotional environment where openness feels natural. You don't feel like you have to earn his affection or tiptoe around his moods. He gives you the confidence that it's safe to express yourself, whether that's joy, fear, anger, or sadness. Emotional safety allows love to breathe. It makes the relationship feel like a refuge rather than a battlefield. This doesn't mean he becomes flawless or emotionally perfect. There will still be misunderstandings and moments of frustration. But his response to those moments is what sets him apart. A deeply loving man doesn't shut down when things get uncomfortable. He leans in, he asks, what can we do to fix this? Rather than retreating into silence or blame. His goal isn't to win, it's to understand. This kind of communication builds trust on a profound level. You stop questioning his intentions because his behavior consistently proves them. You know that even when there's tension, his heart remains steady. His presence begins to feel like emotional protection, not in a controlling way, but in a way that gives you peace. Emotional safety in love is not about avoiding conflict, but about navigating it with care. It's knowing that love won't disappear when things get messy. A man who provides this kind of safety becomes your emotional anchor, calm, grounded, and dependable. His words don't just comfort, they heal. His consistency doesn't just reassure, it strengthens. And when you feel that kind of emotional security, you realize that deep love isn't loud, dramatic, or unpredictable. It's the steady heartbeat that reminds you again and again you're safe here. When a man begins to love deeply, one of the most telling signs is found in his language about the future. His words stop revolving around the present moment and begin reaching forward, weaving you into his vision of what's next. This is what it means when he speaks with intentional future language, a shift that reveals emotional commitment, planning, and purpose. It's no longer about fleeting moments of passion. It's about building something that lasts. When a man loves you deeply, he doesn't just want you in his life now. He starts imagining life with you later. In the early stages of connection, conversations often stay in the realm of the temporary. Plans revolve around the weekend, a few casual outings, or vague ideas. But when love deepens, the dialogue changes. You'll hear him say things like, "We should go there next summer," or "I've been thinking about where we could live someday." Those words may seem small, but they carry a powerful emotional message. He's not just living in the moment anymore. He's beginning to picture a shared future. Intentional future language isn't always about grand promises or declarations. Sometimes it shows up in the quiet details. When he starts saying our instead of my, when he includes you in decisions about his goals, when he begins to use phrases like "we'll figure it out," that's emotional integration. It means you're not an addition to his life. You're part of the foundation he's beginning to build. This is the difference between attraction and investment. Attraction is about desire. Investment is about direction. A man who uses intentional future language is signaling emotional safety and trust. He's not afraid of commitment. He's preparing for it. By including you in his plans, he's inviting you into his emotional world and showing you that he sees the relationship as stable and enduring. Even if the future isn't fully defined yet, his willingness to imagine it with you reveals that he sees you as part of his long-term story. It's a quiet kind of reassurance, one that tells you you're not temporary here. What's equally important is that his words begin to match his actions. A man who's serious doesn't just talk about someday. He starts taking small steps toward it. He introduces you to the people who matter to him, considers your needs in his decisions, and talks openly about the life he's trying to create. It's not about fantasy. It's about alignment. His planning isn't to impress. It's to integrate. He's building emotional continuity between today and tomorrow. This shift in communication also brings a sense of calm to the relationship. When someone includes you in their future, uncertainty fades. You stop questioning whether you're a convenience or a choice because his words make it clear you're part of his intention. He doesn't use the future as a vague promise to keep you around. He uses it as a shared canvas to paint with you. That's what makes it different from empty talk. You feel grounded, not misled. Intentional future language is one of the deepest forms of love expression because it blends emotion with responsibility. It's love that thinks ahead, that considers your presence in moments yet to come. It's love that asks, how do we grow together? Instead of, how long can this last? It reflects maturity, the kind of love that isn't afraid to plan, to imagine, or to build. When a man speaks like this, listen closely. It's not the big promises that matter most. It's the quiet consistency of inclusion. It's when I becomes we, when me turns into us. That's the language of a man who's not just in love with you, but ready to walk into life with you. His words aren't just about where he's going. They're an open invitation for you to walk beside him. That's when you know his love isn't temporary. It's intentional, rooted, and built for the long road ahead. When a man deeply loves you, his words begin to tell a silent story, one that doesn't rely on dramatic gestures or loud declarations, but on quiet, consistent truth. His language becomes a reflection of his heart, emotionally authentic, inclusive, steady, safe, and forward-looking. You'll notice he no longer speaks to impress, he speaks to connect. His I becomes we, his passion becomes consistency. And his concern becomes care. He doesn't promise perfection. He promises presence. True love isn't about how much someone can say. It's about how deeply their words align with their actions. A man who truly loves you speaks with intention, not to manipulate, but to reassure, not to control, but to protect, not to impress, but to include. His communication gives you peace, not confusion. His tone gives you comfort, not chaos. So if you ever find yourself wondering whether a man loves you, don't just listen to his words. Feel the energy behind them. The right man won't speak to keep you guessing. He'll speak to make you feel safe, valued, and chosen. And that's how you'll know. His love isn't just something he says. It's something he lives every single day.